All right, so are you ready to deep dive into the world of Monique with me today?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
Perfect. So we're going way beyond the typical celebrity interview today.
Hmm.
Um, really going to unpack Monique's views on Hollywood, on family,
Hmm.
and what she calls truth, all based on her appearance on Shannon Sharpe's Club, Shay.
It's such a fascinating interview. She's always been so outspoken, but this one really dives deep. She uses her platform to challenge systems, not just in entertainment, but in society too.
Exactly. And what's striking is this fearlessness.
Hmm.
She's known for speaking her mind.
Hmm.
But this interview is on another level. It's like she holds absolutely nothing back. And what's interesting is this has been with her from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like she even talks about dreaming of fame as a kid,
Hmm.
idolizing people like the Jackson 5 and Oprah.
Yeah, it's like those early influences maybe shaped her vision of success and her comfort with the spotlight.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about wanting fame. It was about this instinct to speak truth, even as a child. She tells this story about the 11th grade where she exposed a classmate's secret about a baby's paternity. Obviously ruffled some feathers.
Oh, wow. So she was already challenging narratives back then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that really makes you think about that line between minding your own business and speaking up when we see something wrong,
Yeah.
and how much that concept of truth depends on the situation. It's something she's grappled with throughout her life.
For sure.
She also talks about feeling disconnected from school, specifically history lessons that didn't reflect her experience as a Black woman.
Yeah, and that early skepticism of what she was being told, I think it's a key part of her story. It's like she developed this internal radar for questioning authority and digging deeper.
Right, and that carries over into her views on family, too. That powerful quote, just because we're blood, that doesn't mean we're family.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
That's a powerful statement. Makes you think about whether blood ties should always dictate loyalty, and if setting boundaries, even with family, is crucial for well-being.
100%. And she talks about prioritizing peace and accountability
Hmm.
over maintaining relationships that are toxic,
Yeah.
even with her own biological family.
That's huge, especially because she applies that same philosophy to her professional life, too.
Exactly.
She refuses to tolerate mistreatment or exploitation, even from those big Hollywood names.
Right.
Like, she's not afraid to walk away if the situation isn't right.
Yeah, and that brings us to her husband, Sidney Hicks.
Hmm.
He's her manager, confidant, protector. It's a partnership that often raises eyebrows in Hollywood.
Their relationship really defies the stereotypes that are often placed on Black couples. They present this united front and their strength together. I think it challenges the norms of the industry.
For sure. And she's fiercely protective of that bond.
Mhm.
She calls out the negativity that's directed at Black love, and she points out how Black women are often only embraced after they've been through some kind of breakdown. He's like, society expects them to be strong to the point of breaking.
Right. It's sad, but it's true. It makes you wonder why we wait until people reach that breaking point before offering support. It's a cycle that needs to be broken for sure.
100%.
Oh.
Now let's talk about Monique's early days in Hollywood. She admits to being naive at first, not really understanding the business side of things. She even tells this funny story about parking outside the studio lot for the Parkers because no one told her she had a designated spot,
Oh, wow.
right? It's kind of a funny anecdote, but it also foreshadows a bigger issue,
Oh.
this financial reality of Hollywood.
Exactly. Over time, she realized the extent of financial disparities and exploitation in Hollywood. She talks about the shockingly low salary she received for the Parkers, especially in the final season. It's crazy because that show was so popular. And syndication profits can be huge. So it just highlights how even when Black actors achieve mainstream success, they may not reap the same financial rewards as their white counterparts.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's even crazier when you compare her earnings to those of white actresses like Amy Schumer, who's being paid significantly more for her work. And this isn't just about Monique. It's a systemic problem that affects countless women in Hollywood.
It's that lack of pay equity that's plagued the industry forever.
Totally. And it's this issue, along with her refusal to be mistreated, that led to her being labeled difficult.
Right, it's a way to discredit and diminish their voices, maintain that status quo.
Yeah. And as we know, her battles go far beyond just pay disparities. She's had very public conflicts with Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels, some of the most influential figures in the industry.
Right, and those conflicts stem from Monique's claims of being blackballed. and the specific actions of each individual involved. It's complex, and we'll get into specifics, but ultimately, it highlights the challenge of holding powerful figures accountable, especially in an industry where reputation and connections are everything.
It's a David versus Goliath situation. And Monique does not back down. She's deeply disappointed with how the industry, including some black entertainers, responded to her claims. Instead of seeking accountability from the powerful figures involved, many blamed her, which just perpetuates the system she's trying to dismantle.
It's so much easier to silence the messenger than address the message itself.
Right.
And Monique's story reminds us that speaking truth to power often comes at a cost.
And that cost can be steep. She talks about Kevin Hart initially offering support, but then withdrawing it due to his manager's intervention. It just shows how even those who might be sympathetic can be pressured into silence.
It's those power dynamics in Hollywood, how those who benefit from the system often work to protect it.
Exactly. And then there's a story about D.L. Hewley and a dispute over a contract versus a memorandum. Monique stood firm, refusing to back down when she was treated unfairly.
You know, that story emphasizes her commitment to principle. It's about more than money. It's about respect and fairness. Holding people to their word even when it's inconvenient.
It's setting a precedent.
Totally.
Yeah.
And she brings that same energy to all her battles in Hollywood. Like, she's not interested in empty apologies. She wants real change. And frankly, she wants to be compensated for the harm that's been done.
She even says, if someone cost you millions of dollars, do you want that back?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a powerful statement. It forces us to consider the tangible impact of these injustices.
Right, because we often talk about these issues in abstract terms. But she makes it real, reminds us that there are real financial consequences to this kind of exploitation.
And her fight isn't just personal. She connects it to this larger idea of breaking generational curses and healing communal wounds.
Right. She believes truth and accountability are essential for that healing process.
Exactly.
Like, she compares ignoring these systemic issues to ignoring a cancer diagnosis, hoping it'll magically disappear isn't a solution.
Powerful analogy.
And her statement, if our community dealt in truth, how much further would we be? That really hits home. It challenges us to examine our own complicity and to prioritize honesty.
It's a call to action, right? To break the cycle of silence and support those who speak truth to power, even when it's tough.
Exactly. Create a world where accountability is the norm, not the exception. But there's so much more to unpack about Monique's story and what it means for all of us.
Oh, yeah. We've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to this interview, so much more to unpack, so much more to think about. We'll get into all of that in part 2 of this deep dive, so stay tuned.
As we dig deeper into Monique's story, it's easy to get caught up in the specifics of her conflicts with those big Hollywood names. But when you take a step back, there's a bigger picture here. It's a pattern of Black artists, especially women, being undervalued and taken advantage of by a system that's built on inequality.
Yeah, it's like this unspoken rule in Hollywood. Be thankful for the little you get, don't cause any trouble, and definitely don't question the people in charge.
Right, and if you do, you're labeled as difficult or ungrateful. It's a classic tactic to silence people and maintain that power imbalance.
And it's so effective.
Yeah.
Because it makes other people afraid to speak up too. They don't want to risk their careers. So it creates this culture of fear. And the cycle of exploitation continues.
Exactly, a self-perpetuating system.
So Monique talked about this interesting dynamic. That happened after she won the Oscar for Precious.
Yeah.
She was backstage with Oprah, and the audience was chanting Monique's name, not Oprah's.
Wow. It's interesting, that subtle shift in power. The audience in that moment chose to celebrate her, regardless of industry norms or her relationship with Oprah. It's like they were intuitively recognizing that she represented something different, something that challenged the established hierarchy. Maybe it was her raw honesty, maybe her refusal to play the game, maybe it was just her talent, but the audience was drawn to her.
And that shift in power, however fleeting, likely played a role in how the industry treated her afterward. Systems of power, especially in a place like Hollywood, are threatened by those who don't play by their rules. It makes you think about that point she made about Black women needing to be broken before they're truly seen and embraced. It's a tragic reality.
It is. It really speaks to the need for a shift in how we as a society value and support Black women, not just in Hollywood, but everywhere. We need to celebrate and uplift them, not just their struggles.
Okay, so we've talked about her general experiences with Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels.
Yeah.
But she also gives some specific examples of exploitation on set, especially during the filming of Precious.
Yeah, she talks about a lack of basic amenities, like decent food and trailers that actually worked. for the black cast and crew.
I mean, she described trailers literally blowing up from gas leaks. That's beyond disrespect. That's negligence.
It really highlights the power dynamics.
Yeah.
These concerns were reportedly ignored because those in charge didn't see them as priorities.
And she also mentions being asked to do a ton of promotional work for Precious, even though she wasn't contractually obligated to do so. And when she asked for fair compensation for her time, the industry basically said no.
Right. It's like they were taking advantage of her passion, this unspoken expectation that artists, especially black artists, should just be grateful and not ask for anything extra.
It's not like she was demanding millions. She just wanted fair compensation for the work she was doing.
Right. But the industry pushed back, implying that promoting the film was part of her duty as a black actress. Like, they should just be happy to be there.
It's like they were trying to exploit her success while simultaneously minimizing her contributions.
And this brings us to another interesting point. She drew a parallel between her experiences and those of Taraji P. Henson, suggesting a pattern of mistreatment and exploitation.
Right. She questioned why Taraji, a highly acclaimed actress, felt compelled to audition for a role in The Color Purple when she was supposedly handpicked for the part.
If she was already chosen, why even make her audition?
Exactly.
It creates this power imbalance. It's as though she had to prove herself worthy.
It's almost manipulative. Like they knew she'd be less likely to negotiate if she had to jump through hoops to get the role.
Exactly. A tactic used to exploit those perceived as less powerful. And Monique calling this out is huge. It's about more than just individual cases. It's about systemic issues.
Now we can't talk about Monique's journey without discussing her stand-up comedy career. It all started with a dare from her brother to go up on stage at an open mic night.
And the rest is history. She absolutely killed it, revealed this raw talent, this undeniable stage presence.
He talks about that feeling of walking onto a stage as pure magic, like coming home.
It's the power of authenticity, connecting with people through laughter and vulnerability. Stand-up offered her a space where her voice could truly shine.
But even in stand-up, she faced challenges. People trying to take advantage of her, especially early on. Promoters trying to underpay her.
That's unfortunately a common experience for so many artists, especially women and people of color. They're seen as easy targets.
But Monique learned to stand her ground, demand the respect and compensation she deserved. She even called the police on a promoter who tried to cheat her out of $75.
Wow. That's a powerful message. We shouldn't tolerate exploitation at any level. Every artist deserves to be treated with respect and compensated fairly.
Absolutely, and it's that same fierceness that she brings to her fight in Hollywood.
Yeah, her unwavering commitment to fairness and accountability is a lesson for all of us.
Yeah.
Know your worth and never settle.
Speaking of stand-up, Monique also shared some insightful stories about her time on the Queens of Comedy tour.
That tour was groundbreaking, showcased the talent of black female comedians like never before.
And Monique was a force to be reckoned with on that stage. She tells this hilarious story about how she earned her headlining spot, which involves some pretty funny energy clashes with the Svarmers.
Oh, wow.
Right.
It's amazing that they were able to put their egos aside and create a memorable show.
They understood that a good show was more important than individual accolades.
Right, and that's what made them so successful.
But even in this empowering space, Monique encountered those same issues of unfair treatment and financial discrepancies.
It's that assumption that they should just be grateful, even if it means being exploited.
Sadly, it's a pattern we see way too often.
And Monique, as always, refused to tolerate it, demanded accountability and fairness, even if it meant making waves. She even shared a story about one of the initial checks for the tour bouncing.
Are you serious? A check from Walter Latham bouncing?
It just goes to show that even in successful ventures, black artists, especially women, often have to fight for their earnings. They have to be vigilant and protect themselves.
Monique's response was brilliant. She told Walter Latham that from that point on, she would only accept cash.
It was a power move. She knew her worth.
She also describes some chaotic moments on the tour, being swarmed by people claiming to be promoters, trying to get close to them.
It speaks to the vulnerability that comes with fame, especially for black women in this industry.
Right. It's a reminder that success doesn't make you immune to these issues.
And Monique and the other women on the tour had to learn how to navigate these situations. They had to protect themselves and their earnings while still delivering incredible performances.
Their ability to thrive in that environment, to create this legacy, is a testament to their strength and resilience.
It also highlights the importance of having a strong support system, people who have your back and who understand the complexities of the industry.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. From Monique's early days in Hollywood to her experiences on the Queens of Comedy tour. But there's still so much more to her story, especially her perspective on breaking those generational curses and creating a future where truth and accountability actually matter.
She offers such valuable insights, and we'll dive into all of that in part 3 of this deep dive.
One of the things that really struck me is how Monique connects her personal experiences to these bigger societal issues.
Yeah, it's not just about her own battles in Hollywood. It's about accountability and truth in all aspects of life.
Exactly, like if we can't even demand honesty and fairness from these people we put on pedestals, you know, these celebrities and powerful figures, how can we expect it anywhere else?
It's like she's saying, look, if it's happening at that level, it's definitely happening in our everyday lives.
Right, and it challenges all of us to look at our own relationships and ask ourselves, are we really holding ourselves and others accountable?
And she's willing to be so vulnerable, to
Wow.
share her own struggles. It's a way to connect with people,
Right.
encourage healing.
Absolutely. One of the most moving parts of the interview for me was when she talked about her relationship with her husband, Sidney. She calls him a king, who helped her shed what she called her 15-year-old mentality and embrace her true worth.
It's a beautiful example of how a loving partnership can be transformative.
Right.
Have someone who supports your growth, even when it means challenging you. That's powerful.
Totally. And it flips the script on those negative stereotypes we see about black men in the media. You know, they have this incredibly strong supportive partnership.
It's a testament to the power of Black love and the importance of representation.
She also talks about the importance of owning our choices, even when they're difficult. She tells this story about how Sydney challenged her to stop using her past trauma as an excuse for her behavior.
Oh, wow. That's a tough but necessary lesson. We all have the capacity to heal and grow, but it takes honesty and self-awareness.
It's like she's saying, yes, I've been through some things, but I'm not going to let that define me.
Right, reclaiming your agency.
Exactly. And speaking of family dynamics, we can't overlook her relationship with her father. She describes him as a good-sounding bullshitter.
Oh, wow. So
Right.
someone who is charming but ultimately unreliable.
Right. And her stories about him reveal those complicated dynamics that can exist within families.
Yeah, especially when there's a history of broken promises.
Like when she shared that story about how he refused to co-sign for her to get a car, even though she was financially responsible, and then he turned around and bought her sister a car.
It's that feeling of being unseen and undervalued.
Absolutely. But even in that experience, Monique found a way to turn it into a positive. You know, she realized that working hard and figuring things out on her own made her stronger.
It's amazing how she can transform pain into power.
And that strength is evident in how she handles these challenges in Hollywood.
She's a force to be reckoned with.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Monique's world, I'm curious, what was your biggest takeaway?
Her unwavering commitment to truth and accountability. It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to challenge injustice, even when it's uncomfortable.
I completely agree. It's about refusing to be complicit and demanding better.
And as we go about our day, let's keep this question in mind. What responsibility do we have to dismantle systems of exploitation and support those who speak truth to power?
That's a powerful question. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Monique. It's been an incredible conversation. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.